Sue Creates, and I'm doing a video today on sewing a memory bear and also a memory rabbit. So we're going to start with the memory rabbit. My mom recently passed away, and my daughter wanted to make these, and she tried to make it. She got a pattern on Etsy, but she was struggling with, there weren't really any directions on YouTube or anything that were showing her how to do it. And she's a new sewer. So I thought we'd make a video together and show you how to do it. So the first thing we did is the original pattern, it prints out at 100%, which is this size. And it's pretty small. I actually ended up, when I made one, I hand sewed it because, I don't know, I just decided to do it because it was so tiny. But I ended up enlarging it to 150%. So I think that's probably going to be a good size, especially with the sewing machine. We'll see how it turns out. So this part we're not using. We're going to use the 150% size. And the supplies you need are, you need your pattern, which I can link and tell you which Etsy pattern she used. You have to purchase it on Etsy. Or you can use any other pattern and just kind of follow similar directions. You'll need your pattern, some fabric, and these are cut out from shirts from my mom that she had. And we're using some extra fabric that we got at Walmart for the bunny inside of the ears. And my daughter wants to do like a little heart that we're gonna write something on, and we're gonna put it inside the bear so you won't see it. So that's what the red's for. So you end up with, you've got an arm that you're gonna cut 4 of. So I'll show you that. I'm just kind of laying it out here, showing you what you need. So you need your fabric, your pattern. You need some scissors, some pins to pin the fabric. You could actually use like the washable glue sticks if you wanted to, if you don't want to use pins. I didn't try that, but I feel like it would probably work. Also, because I enlarged it, some of the pieces came in 2 pieces, so I had to kind of line them up and tape them on both sides so that I have those. Let's see, what else do you need? And then a sewing machine, if you're going to use a sewing machine, and thread. If you're going to sew it by hand, I would probably use like a hand quilting thread. It's a little stronger, so that's what I would use. And then when I originally did one, I used just an ink pen, but it sometimes when you're sewing it, it'll show through. So we got this other pen. It's air and water soluble, which is the side I'm going to use, the purple side. This one is water soluble, so if you wash it, I don't think we're going to wash this bear or rabbit a lot. So, I mean, it could be washed, but I'm going to use the purple side. And then also we have some batting to stuff the bear, and I got this polyfill low loft quilt batting, and what you end up doing is just like cutting little pieces of it and then putting them in the bear a little bit at a time. And this is way more than you need, but we just got this one because it's a good price. Okay, and that's about all you need. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get these set up, pinned, and ready to cut, and then I'll show you that. One of the other things that my daughter didn't know as a new sewer is that when you are cutting out what this little arrow here means, I think they had it in the instructions, but she didn't really notice it. But it'll tell you this arrow is what the grain of the fabric is, and you're supposed to lay the pattern down on the fabric with the grain going that way. So in order to figure out where the grain is on fabric, I mean, because this is fabric I cut from clothes, but you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see it, but you can kind of see the lines kind of going down. But also, when you go to the side, these little fray things, if you pull them, if you're on the grain, so I don't think that's the grain actually then. Let's see, I'm gonna find the grain. Okay, so like right here, I feel like it's hard on cut fabric to figure it out. feel like the grain's that way. Let's try to get a straight line. Sure, there's probably better videos showing you how to do this. Okay, well maybe that was the green then. Okay, so when you pull it, the threads will pull out like this, and then you'll see the little fraying of the fabric. So it'll pull. This is just a tight weave, I think. So anyway, but that's what that means though. It's easier if you have fabric that, like if you're getting something that has a salvage line, or if you're, so this one shows it better. When you're looking at it, you can kind of see the grain, but when you see these threads here, see how they pull so easy? It just goes like that. That means this way is the grain. So you would lay this going this way, where the grain is going like that. If the grain was this way, you would put it like that and pin it. And it just has to do with like how the fabric stretches. And some patterns recommend that you lay your pattern going the way the grain goes. So I just wanted to tell you about that. This one, we've got it on the grain. It's going to go like this, but it says to cut 2. And they're going to be mirrored. So if they were going to go the same way, you would want to cut this in half and put like, we can actually cut it in half anyway. So we'll cut this in half. And if it was not mirrored, this is the right side and this is the lighter side is the wrong side. You would put both of them together like this if it wasn't mirrored, because you're going to cut 2 pieces and you want them to be exactly the same. But this says we're going to mirror it, so one of these pieces has to go the other way. But you still want it to be on the grain. So it's going to be going the same way, but just, so one is going to be the light side and one's going to be the dark side. And then you just put it on your fabric and you pin it. Well, some of these are, some of these don't have little heads on them. Kind of like to pin it pretty good. That's why I was saying that maybe pinning it, you got to pin it first because we've already cut it, because you're wanting to hold this piece of fabric and the other piece of fabric together. You kind of also want to make sure that you have enough room on the back. This one's shorter. That should be good. Actually, maybe I'll move it. I didn't realize that one was shorter. Okay. Let's try that. This pattern does not have the 1/4 inch sew seam on the pattern. So when you cut your fabric to the size, you need to have an extra 1/4 inch around it. And that's what we're going to use this purple pen to draw. We're gonna just draw around the actual pattern. And then when we cut it, then we're gonna cut approximately a 1/4 inch around. It can be a little bigger because you can always cut it down smaller. Just want to make sure you have enough room for your seam allowance. All right, so once it's all pinned down, we're going to go ahead and trace around the pattern with the pen. You want to get it as close to that edge as you can. Just follow it around. Also, one of the things I do is like, so they have these things on here that letters, and in the pattern it'll tell you to match, you know, this to this and C to C and E to whatever. What I've been doing is like I will put like a little line out where that is, and then I'll put the, you know, like a C, just for after I cut it, then I know. So at that dot, we're going to put a line, and then we're going to put a C next to that also. And I put it over kind of on this side because I'm going to cut. This part is the trickiest part when you get to cutting it because it's a 1/4 inch, but it's like pretty narrow right there. So you probably would stop like around here when you're cutting. And then it actually gets sewn together, so it's not too bad. And the same thing up here, I'm going to put like a line coming out and the C. Over here, we're going to have the line coming out and we'll put a B. And that'll just help us when we're sewing and matching everything up so it fits together correctly. Okay, there's that one. So we're just going to go ahead and do all of our pieces the same way. Some of these pieces will say cut 4 mirrored. So whenever it says mirrored, it's going to be the same like this. You're going to need one that's going to be the right side facing up and one with the right side facing down. If you want to cut 4 layers and do all of them, you could do 2 of them right side up, 2 of them right side down, just layer them all together and put your pattern on top and do the same thing here. But this one, any kind of thing where it has a mark, you would just mark it and put the letter. When you see these little dotted lines, it says leave open. I've been putting like a line and then a line, and then I'll put like dots in between, like in the seam allowance, like those little jaggedy or dotted line. That's that. Okay, so when you're doing a pattern piece that needs to be mirrored, I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but what you're going to do when you're mirroring a pattern is you're going to fold your fabric in half so that you have a right facing and then a wrong facing on the next layer. This one wants you to mirror 4, so there's 4 pieces at once. An easy way to do that is so you have it folded in half, just fold it in half one more time, and then put your pattern piece on there, pin it, and do your outline, and then when you cut it, you'll have the 4 mirrored pieces. Because you're going to have two, this is the arm piece, so you'll have one for one side, a mirrored set, and one for the other side, other arm, a mirrored set. So that's just a tip on that one. All right, so once you have your patterns put on your fabric, the way I'm doing it, like for the bunny ears, this one needs 2 linings and 2 mains. So 2 linings are the inside of the ear, and the main is going to be the back side of the ear. And we want to have pink on the inside, and we picked this other fabric to be the back of the ear. These don't need to be mirrored, so I just layered them so that I'm going to end up with 2 of the pink and 2 of the these leaf patterns. And they can be, I just folded, well, the pink one, I just folded it in half. This other one, you could fold in half too. Doesn't matter which way they're facing. So what you're going to do though, you need to have because this pattern does not have a seam allowance incorporated into it. So you need a seam allowance, and usually it's like a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I usually just eyeball it, but if you don't know what, like, you know, if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can measure it out. So 1/4 inch is like right there on that line, but I would recommend maybe going out a little further because you can always trim it. So I'm gonna go like a 3/4 inch. And if you're not, comfortable just eyeballing it, just kind of go around it. And for this one, I'm using the blue side, and the blue side is water soluble ink. This part, even if you cut it and you can still see some of the blue, it's going to be in the seam allowance, so you're not going to see it even, no matter what. I'm just going to put some dots like at the 3/4 mark. So I'll go over here, 3/4, and then you can kind of just like connect your dots. And I'll just go all around the whole thing. So there's 1, 2, 3, that third mark there. And maybe, just how many ever makes you comfortable. You can do as much as you want, as little as you want. You can just eyeball it too. As much as you want, as little as you want. You can just eyeball it too. I'm just gonna connect those. And that's actually a little bit close right there in that corner. So let's look at that. That should be actually out to here. So I'm going to kind of round it a little bit, go a little further out. This is for people who want to be really exact, or you feel more comfortable that way. You can do it like that, or you can kind of just eyeball it. So I'm just going to kind of go around, just kind of make it enough so that I'll have that seam allowance. The reason it doesn't matter as much is because when you actually go to sew it, you're going to be sewing on this purple line. So this purple line is where you're actually going to be stitching, and that's the part that's really important. This other part is just extra. You're going to end up trimming it a little bit. I'll go over some of that later. But the main thing is the purple line has to be real exact. All right, and then now I'm going to cut this out. I'll do this to all of these other ones. So to cut it out, you're just going to take your scissors, go around it, make sure you're getting all 4 layers. And just try to stay pretty much on that blue line, or maybe a little bit even to the outside of that blue line. You want to give yourself a good seam allowance. It'll make your sewing a lot easier. And there may be better ways to do that, to do this whole thing, but also if you have like a rotary blade, that would be really good. I don't have a rotary blade with me here. I'm at my daughter's, and we're just kind of using her coffee table as our sewing area. And we're making things work. All right, so you'll end up with that. And you have your 4 layers, and just keep them pinned together, and go ahead and do all the rest of them, and then we'll be back. Okay, so the first part that we're going to do is we're going to sew on the front of the body of the bear, the rabbit. It's the same for the bear or the rabbit, but we're doing a rabbit this time. And we're going to sew from G, which I marked right here, all along this purple line until we get down to E down here. And that is from the neck of the bear down to kind of where the crotch of the bear is going to be. And that's the only thing we're going to do on this one. Normally I like to be able to have be sewing where the outside is on this side, but we're just going to do it. It's going to be easier because we have everything marked. So we're going to line it up with that mark right here is where we're going to start. So kind of try to get it in there. And I have my length set at like a little between 2 and 3, like maybe 2.5. And it's just on a straight stitch. And so we're gonna sew, and then I'll do a little back stitch. Let's see, why is it? Back stitch it. Okay, and then we're gonna follow that line. This is my sewing machine I gave to my daughter, so I haven't used it in a while. I just follow along and just go slow. And this is the E where we're going to stop. It's coming up. And then if you get to like a corner, you can just pull the needle down. And then lift the back foot up, and you can kind of turn it a little bit if the corners are a little tricky for you. Okay, so now I'm at the E, and we'll just do one, a couple stitches, and then back stitch, forward. I just want to make that really secure. All right, I'm gonna lift it up. This one has a seam ripper on this side, and we'll just, a cutter, thread cutter. All right, so we have that part sewn, and when you open it up, get these needles out of there, pins. You can can you see where it's sewn? We started here, and then we're going to end right down there. And then when you open it up, then you have the right sides are facing out, and that's going to be like the little tummy area. We'll put it back together. All right, and we'll go to the next step. All right, so now we're going to do the next step, which is we're going to sew the back of the body for the bear, and we're going to sew between H, which is this line right here, and then F, which is marked down here, and we're going to just sew right along the purple line again. And everything is the same as far as settings. Get that pulled back. Oh, it wants to go inside a little bit. A couple stitches, and then we'll back stitch. You might even just do your manual, not for backing up, but okay. And back stitch again. Okay. I think I puckered it a little bit right there. Okay, So this one is going to be the back. And you turn it inside out, and it's like that. And these are the little legs. So the bear is starting to take shape, sort of. All right, we're going to go to the next step. All right, the next thing we're going to do is the arms, and you have to do 2 of these. So I'll do one on camera and then the other one off camera, but just to show you how to do it. We've got it all pinned together. We're going to be sewing from where are we sewing from? Okay, so the parts that we need to leave open are right from here below the it'll show you on the pattern too. So like when you look at your pattern, you have this area that's going to be left open, and then we're going to have this area right here that's going to be left open. Sorry, this area right there that'll be left open. And the ones with the little dots are we're going to line things up later. So we're going to only leave those 2 areas open. This little section is going to get sewn. So I'm going to actually start, I'm probably going to start with that little section first. And then I'll move down to here. So all the way around, come up to here, to that line right there, and stop. And then I'll do one more pass of it because everything's getting double sewn so that it will have a good tight seam. All right, let's get started. And same thing, just when you start sewing, start and then do like a little back stitch. Okay. Actually, I might just try to do this one. Hard to see though. Yep, it just fits. That way I won't have to double sew that one. Alright, we'll get down to the section right there. Now, the other thing too is I do have it pinned. I only put 1 pin in it, so it's pretty good. Just make sure everything's lined up right. And then the corners are just go slow. Stop when you need to, and with the needle down, and lift up the foot so that you can kind of turn. If you're hand sewing, it's a little easier as far as the slow part, but it's definitely faster in the long run if you machine sew. You might notice we have kind of a bigger seam allowance over here, but that's not a problem because we can trim it. Once we get to that step, we'll probably trim it down a little bit, and we're gonna do some stuff to make it so the corners are easy to turn. All right, I'm gonna just do it one more time, and we'll come back. Okay, the next part we're gonna do is the head, and we've got our head pieces cut out. This part, we have to actually take them apart from each other, and this is the little gusset, and we're going to fold it. This one doesn't have the line, but this one does. Okay, so we're gonna when we cut it out, we marked it with our pen and we drew around it. Let me see if I can open it here for a second. Okay, so we had that V area, and then we have these 2 little C's that we marked on there. So we're going to line those 2 up. with each other. And then we're going to make sure that that one part here is kind of at a point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the bottom, and I'm just going to sew all the way up like a wedge. And then when we open it up, it'll be like a little pleat or a little, I think they call it a gusset. And so we're going to do that on this one and the other half of the face. So let me go ahead and I'll show you this one, and then I'll do the other one off camera. So we're going to start the bottom there. We're going to back stitch. And just fold this, make sure that that one line is at a point. Do the back stitch. So it ends up looking like this. And then when you open it, you have like a little pleat. And that'll be kind of to define the face on the bear. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time over that one, and I'll do the other side of the face and the other piece that we have, and I'll be back. Okay, so I made a mistake, but I kind of wanted to show you what to do if you do make a mistake. This is the part from right where this area is to over here that I am supposed to not sew and leave it open, and I sewed it. Plus I kind of went a little wide. So I'm going to use my seam ripper, and I'm going to take out those stitches. Just go through and take them out. One of the ways you can use your seam ripper too is like you can kind of open it and you can see the stitches there. And sometimes it's easier to pull it from that way. You know, just depends on, if you do it that way, it kind of breaks. So however you want to do it, but this is what you do. Lots of people have to use their seam ripper, unfortunately. And I just kind of wanted to show you how to do that. So don't panic if you mess up. You know, you can always get a seam ripper. This one came with the machine, and it has like the little brush to clean your machine with. And the seam ripper is hidden inside. So you do like look at it like, I don't have a seam ripper. But then if you pull it open, then you do. And you just stick the handle in there and start working on it. That was it. I just wanted to show you that. Oh, not ready.
Okay.
I
can crop it.
Okay, so the next step with our bear head is we are going to sew from B, which is the nose, down the front of the neck. So we're going to sew from this point here all the way down and then to the bottom. And we'll go ahead and do a reinforced double sew on that. And after we do that, we're going to sew, I didn't mark on this one. After we do that, the next step is over on this side, we're going to sew from here down. But I'll go ahead and show you that, okay? So let's go ahead and start. I'm going to take this pin out. I'm going to start from the tip of the nose. And do a little back stitch. And follow that curve. Go ahead and lift the foot up a little bit. Take this one out. Pivot there. And then back stitch. Okay, and then go ahead and just double reinforce that. Actually, what I'll do is I'm just gonna show you the next step also while we're at it. I just have to mark that. I forgot to mark it the first time. So we're gonna, so from that mark there, the O, all the way to the bottom. The back side. The bottom. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and reinforce both of these and then we'll be back. Okay, so once you have your patterns cut out, the ones where you are, like this one, it had 2 lining and 2 main, and I cut everything all at once. You can do it that way. It makes it, the way I did it, if you do it the way I did it, then you're gonna have to take the pieces, and when they get sewn together, we're gonna have the back of the ear and the inside of the ear are gonna be sewn together with the right sides on the inside and the back sides on the outside. So that now there's no lines though. So what I did is I went ahead and did both of those where the good side is facing in on both of those. These are so pale it's hard to see, but it's a little darker. And what you're gonna do, unfortunately, that's why you could just do each one separately, and then you would already have this step done that I'm going to do. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to draw my line again around it. You can also pin it if you're worried about it moving. But this is the sew line, so we need that sew line. And we need the marks that say A. This is the part we're going to leave open. We're going to do our little dots so we know not to sew past there. And when we get to the sewing part, we'll probably put a pin there so that we don't accidentally sew past that. Turn it around a little bit here. And then so I'm not sure that this is the best way to do it. I think that if you wanted to, I mean, because you're gonna have to be drawing this anyway, so you could just do like do it separately. Yeah, what did I do? Don't do like I do. Okay. All right, you have to pin it. And you could, so this one, I'll just do it. I'm gonna pin it this time, so hopefully this one will come out a little bit better. The prep, doing the prep for this is the hard work. The sewing is gonna be easy. We're gonna just get past the prep. We're going to mark our A, and the part where we're going to leave it open, do a little dot so I know to leave it open. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted to show you, is that when we're doing these layer things, same thing like this where we did 4 arms, we're going to have to we're gonna have like 2 pieces for one arm and 2 pieces for the other arm. So this one will get unpinned. Just do this other one so you get an idea. I don't have my regular pin cushion. Okay. There's that. So we're going to take it off. And these are going to get sewn inside out also. So we're going to have one. That's going to be, yeah, right. So there's that one. And then this is going to get flipped over. Yeah, because we want right sides in. That's going to go like that. And one of the things is if you're going to draw on them and layer them, maybe draw with the bad side out when you're doing your marking, because that's the part you want it on, and I did it on the good side, so that's not. We're going to do the same thing with this one. We're going to make the insides facing in. And then we'll pin them. Or we'll put the thing. There's one. And just basically making sure you have your seam allowance around the edge. Moving it around kind of to fit it the way you want. The seam allowance isn't the most important part, it's the drawing, the part where you're going to actually sew. That's why we need those lines drawn on here. I actually did a hand sewing one, and when I hand sewed, I just held it in my hands and I just sewed it by hand, and I left the pattern on here and it worked. So, I mean, you could also use like glue, the washable glue, glue the piece on there and then sew it that way. I'm gonna do the same thing on this. So I'm just gonna basically do the same thing, draw around it, mark all my marks, take this part off, make sure these things are pieced together, and come over here and do the same thing. Okay, so the next step we're gonna do are because this is a bunny rabbit, so we're doing the bunny ears, and we have the 2 pieces of the bunny ear facing right sides together. In the instructions, I mean, when it has you line everything out, it looks like you're just leaving this part open, but when you read the directions, it just says to sew all the way down and leave the whole bottom part. So I'm just going to sew all the way down, just like along these lines, and then I think it's going to work out fine. So I'll go ahead and start on this side. We'll do a back stitch. And probably when you get to the top there, just go kind of slow so you get turned around. Okay, I'll go ahead and reinforce that and we'll be back in a moment. So after you're done sewing your ears and they're still inside out, you kind of want to trim it a little bit, because when you turn it, especially where the point area is, it's going to be bulky. You don't want to trim it too much, but just kind of like maybe this side looks like it's a little thick. I might trim a little bit off of there. It's mainly around the corners where it's going to turn. And maybe a little bit right there. It's just kind of up to your own judgment. Just don't cut past your sewing line, otherwise you're in trouble. Okay, and then the other thing is when you're doing these curved lines over here, you're gonna want to cut little, if you have pinking shirts, you can use those. Those are those scissors that have like the zigzaggy things on them, but I don't have those. But you just want to kind of just clip it, but don't hit where the sewing line is. So stay, you know, a little, quite a ways away from the sewing line. And this will just help it when you're turning it inside out for everything to be able to form an ear shape better. Do it on the other side. So you can kind of see how I kind of did that. And I'm going to do it to the other side. And then once you do that, I'll just do it, and then that way you can see. Sometimes I just barely even cut it at all. Seems to, even just doing a little bit seems to help. And on the top, you can just, oops, where the tip is, you can just, don't get too close, but you can kind of make a flat tip. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this inside out carefully. Looking more and more like a bunny ear. So let's see. And if you have you can use like a chopstick or something with not a sharp end to help you kind of get the pointed part down, and then just kind of run it along the edge. I also don't have an iron where I'm at, so this is kind of impromptu sewing session. So there's one of the ears, and I already did another ear earlier. So we have our bunny ears. And the next step, we're going to attach the bunny ear to, it's kind of like the top of its head, but I'll come back in a second and I'll show you where to pin those. Okay. It's kind of tricky, but I think we have it figured out. What I'm going to kind of just show you how the head is from the pattern. You're going to be lining up the nose point and the head of the gusset point B kind of together. They'll be like facing each other. You have to pin them right sides facing each other. And then you're going to pin it all the way around till they match at point A. So you have to use a lot of pins. And so this is kind of what it looks like. I matched it up. This is the nose part. And then going along the curve and just pinning everything and making sure that the ear is tucked in. Right here is where the ear ends. And you do want to catch the ear in there. So the ear is there. It's fine that we're going to sew over it. But just make sure you don't sew more of the ear than the part that's part of the seam already. Like this part here, we want to catch that in it, but we don't want to catch any of this part in it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew this one, and I'll come back and we'll take a look at it. Okay? Oh, you think I should show them sewing it? No.
You can cut that part out.
Okay. All right. There's a lot of pins in here. So I'm going to take them out as I go. And This is, you just kind of just gotta go slow. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to sew like just a little bit to the right of this line. That way I catch everything in there. And I turn it. Keeping my bunny ear out of the way there. So you can kind of see where I have the mark on here, and it's supposed to kind of match up with that mark. So try to do the best I can here. Okay. So you can kind of see how that ends up. We have this part is the nose. It's hard to see, but these are the ears. This side is done. So once you sew it, it should be captured in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew the other side, and I'll come back, okay?